unaccounted for, at loose, doing something.
What was the attitude of the government officials at the scene of the bombing?
Well, that evening, we had gone down to a triage center that they had set up at the, where was it?
It's up on 5th in Oklahoma. It was a building up there owned by the Oklahoma Publishing Company, I believe.
And we had gone down there, and they had a TV there where the news media was talking about it. And I was upset about the fact that they were not giving the true body count. And one of the ladies from TBN
Trinity Broadcast,
had come up to me and asked me if I knew anything about the bombing or if I had been down there. And I told her I had been down there all morning or all day. And she asked me what I saw while I was down there and what my opinion was of the bombing. And I told her that I was highly upset because the news media and the information that they were given was not the accurate information that they were giving out to the people.
In what way was it not accurate?
That there was more bodies than what they were saying on the news media and releasing at the time. And I told her that I was very distressed over that because I felt like the public has a right to know exactly what took place up there. And while I was talking to her, I asked her, I was asking her questions about if they can find out and if they can actually report the story the way the story needs to be reported. And while I was sitting there talking, prior to that, when we first got there, they told us that they were waiting for them to find some more bodies. And if they did, that they would bring them, if they were alive, they would bring them to the triage center. And that they had made a makeshift morgue. They had moved it from the church across the street that was also destroyed in the bombing to the building next to this building that they had set up the triage center. And while we were waiting for them to start bringing bodies in, my husband and I went for a walk. And when we got back, prior to us going for a walk, there was several doctors and nurses that had come in to work at the triage center as well. And they were all there trying to get the cot set up and get the IVs set up, and they were just hustling and bustling. Well, when we got back, and the news media had caught me coming into the building, that we were outside before we had entered the building, and that's when I was talking to her. Well, when I entered the building, I noticed that most of the doctors and nurses that were there were no longer there, and we hadn't been gone maybe 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, just walked a few blocks.
And
it was just a different atmosphere. There was nobody helping anyone. And before, there was people bringing food and medical supplies, everything in. And when we came back in, there was just a cold, callous atmosphere about,
And what do you attribute that to, Earl?
Well, I found out later that the FBI had taken over. And while she was talking to the lady that being interviewed on the Trinity Broadcast Network, this gentleman walked up to me and said, do you know her? And I said, yes, she's my wife. He said, well, what's she doing? And I said, well, she's kind of upset because they're trying to keep the body count secret, But I didn't really know why. But I think at the time they said they had 19 people known dead, and my wife and just the other people had already tagged over 120 people. And he just kind of turned around and walked away from me then. And I found out later that they were FBI or ATF or whatever, and they had said a few words to her also.
Tony, what was your impression of the FBI, Secret Service, and ATF before and after the bombing?
I really had no dealings with them prior to the bombing. And actually, I haven't had any dealings with them, other than the day of the bombing. I had a friend that worked in the Secret Service Department that was killed in the building. And there was another friend of mine that was killed in the building. And, she was a wonderful person.
They told TBN to shut their cameras off, and these gentlemen were questioning me at the same time Tony was being interviewed. And I saw these two gentlemen walk up to her, and they'd been talking to the ones that were back with me. And he said, asked if I knew her. And I said, yes, she's my wife. And he said, well, what is she? And I said, well, she's been down here all day trying to get people out of this building and help people. And he turned around to his friend and said, well, they need to get her out of here. And that's when she came back and told me that they had told her the FBI was taking over and all of us to get out, and told her to keep her mouth shut.
So if you had to sum up in just a few words, what was the overall attitude for either one of you? What all was the overall attitude of the FBI and ATF?
Well, when they came over to me, he was very pompous and arrogant about asking me who I was,
You know, he was downright rude.
what I was doing there, if I was a civilian, where I worked, what my name was, which I didn't feel like any of that had pertained to what was going on that day or what had happened that day. And he wanted to know just basically everything about me, I would assume. And since I didn't feel that was important, I just told him that I had been down here all day and did what needed to be done, that was needed to be necessarily done. And he said, well, he said, we're down here now, and he said, we're taking over the building, and he said, it would be advisable and recommendable that you keep your mouth shut.
Okay, Earl, how about these 50 cars that you said, approximately 50 cars or so you'd seen?
Well, this was after we had left and started walking around. We were kind of just getting out of the area, you know, just chilling to go smoke and, you know, take a break. And we've been walking down the side streets. I think it was about 6th Street we went up to, because they were on 5th in Oklahoma. And we just looked at the damage. There was damage all the way over on Oklahoma and 6th. The Oklahoma Public Company building had the doors blown out. But these cars started pulling up, and they were all federal agencies. You could tell that they were getting their jackets out, said FBI and ATF and everything. And I think they were wiring in a command center there, because there was phone people and cable companies. But they act like, you know, they were at a drill, you know, like no big deal, just kind of a joking around and all this stuff. And I made a comment to Tony. I said, I can't believe they're here and acting like nothing's even happened, like it's just another drill. And, I mean, they act like it was no big deal.
Have people been threatened and told not to talk about what they saw or heard on the day of the bombing?
The civilians have been fairly easy about coming forward and saying, yes, I did see this, and yes, I did see that. The people on the bomb squad, the fire department, the police department, and so forth, when I do get them to talk to me at all, what they simply say is this: I saw a lot that day. I wish I hadn't. I can't talk about it. I have family. I have a job. I've asked them, have you read my articles? And in those cases where they have said yes. And I said, am I wrong? And each and every time they said no. That's why I can't talk about it. But I've been threatened. We've been told not to talk about the devices.
Roger A. Raubach, a PhD in physical chemistry with over 30 years' experience, considers General Parton an expert's expert. And he said that he had no reservations in supporting the general's position. According to Raubach, the possibility of a ammonium nitrate fertilizer bomb, regardless of size, demolishing a reinforced concrete structure at a 20 to 30 foot standoff, not only strains the limits of credibility, but exceeds it by a considerable margin.
What was odd is that all the people we found surviving was always against the north wall. I'm not real sure where the tie-in comes. It'd be interesting to look at that when it's all over and
the wall that the
blast came from.
The side of the building that the nation now has etched in its memories is where you found most of the people.
Most people who survived were along on the back side of that wall. Yeah. The problem is what you're seeing outside is 9 stories stacked. What we saw in the rubbish pile down there when the dog was climbing, that's 2 floors. Well, yeah, 2 floors. Outside that big rubbish pile called the outside pancake, that's all 9 floors stacked on top of each other. I'm not going to see many voids in there, but in here in the furniture, I have lots of opportunities.
Where was the truck with the bomb?
Look, the plywood covers the crater. So those big sheets of plywood down there cover the crater.
The truck that was parked out in front of the building brought the front of the building down, if you know that that is a